This beautiful location is the Spiral Jetty in the Great Salt Lake in Utah. And we're together. I'm Rosie Stevenson and the artist Carmen Einfinger from New York City. We're here to talk about the art installation that she's just created today, Color Homage to Robert Smithson. Carmen Einfinger is a noted artist, a painter, and a public artist doing installations and interventions all around the world.
I would like to talk a little bit about why I decided to do a piece here at the Spiral Jetty. And it's great excitement for me because I remember so well in the 80s when I was going to college and in an art history course, we studied, though the teacher mentioned Robert Smithson and the Spiral Jetty work. What I recall, and I've always remembered over the years, never forgotten this, that it's about when you begin a journey and you don't know what the experience is going to be like. You go through the experience, and when you get to the end of the journey, you know that something has transformed in you and that you will always carry that with you.
Color Homage to Robert Smithson, and you told me this is a piece that's inspired by your gratitude to him.
Yes, this is very, very important, and I think that is one of the reasons that I'm here. He, like so many artists, they take risks in their art, and they are not afraid to do groundbreaking work. It takes a lot of courage, and it takes a lot of sacrifice in your life. He wanted to get away from the confinement of the galleries and institutions. He wanted to express himself, in nature, and he wanted his work to integrate with the environment. It was more about expansiveness and innovation. He wanted to pass on to generations to come, to not be afraid to do things that are bigger than yourself. He did this in the early 70s, but it was part of a movement called land art or earthworks. He was one of the first to do this, so it's a very iconic piece of artwork. He paved the ground for us to be doing what we're doing today, because so many of us artists are now doing public art interventions. We are not really that dependent on galleries. I am not putting galleries down, but I am just saying that we today have a choice now whether we want to express ourselves within the confinement of a gallery or art institution, or we don't want that. So we have the choice today. And I think that Robert Smithson was one of the artists that contributed to where we are today.
Could Robert Smithson have built this on his own?
No, that is very, very interesting. And Robert was not interested in doing artwork on his own. He was also interested in ancient history, like how artists created work then. It was always with many assistants and many people. And so for him, it was a way that he could express himself. The way this was constructed, as I understand it, he used bulldozers, backloaders, and about 2 trucks, and he had to move all these rocks that you see here and mud. They're balsam rocks, and that involved a lot of people. And he supervised it from a helicopter, and it took about 6 days to build it.
Well, that's kind of mythic. 6 days to build it.
Oh.
It's kind of a mythic piece of art, really. The labyrinth or the maze.
The idea of a spiral and a labyrinth was what inspired him. That's where the interactivity comes with the public, because we all have this romantic idea about being in a labyrinth, and in a maze. So that's exactly what people experience, that they have to walk, in this maze and just keep walking and walking.
And the light is really changing as we sit here in the sunset. And he saw that, Smithson saw that as a very positive thing about his work.
He liked his work to be transformative and in constant motion and always changing. When he constructed this, the rocks were black. 1 year later, the entire spiral jetty was submerged underwater, and only 30 years later, because of the drought, the water receded, and now the rocks were exposed, and they were no longer black, and they were now salt crystals that were clinging to the rocks and was reflecting like the rays of the sun, and the nearby water. It completely had a different feel to it, and that's what he wanted. He wanted the transformative aspect of what happens in nature and this constant change. Whatever nature wants to do with his piece, it's this constant mutation. That's what he liked. I have heard of people, saying we can either experience a spiral jetty black, or we can either experience it white, the white jetty or the black jetty. And as part of the interactivity, there is also a sensation that when you first step into the spiral in the center, it almost feels like you are the first one to step into this planet Earth. So that's a nice feeling. Robert, I know from what I have read about him that he was always very interested in decay and entropy. I believe that the idea of decay had to do with more natural evolvement into decay. I think he would be very disturbed to know what is happening to the Great Salt Lake. There are a lot of things that we are doing that are causing a lot of disruption.
So he contrasted the decay that was natural and not man-made as something that was really part of his art. But
Right.
now we have an accelerated man-induced decay. It's threatening really the Great Salt Lake altogether. It is at risk right now.
This here is supposed to be the largest ecosystem wetland in the entire western United States.
You've come from New York City. You're not a Utah, and you only visit here. So why are you worried about the Great Salt Lake?
It's my desire to make a contribution to public awareness about climate change.
There are 3 rivers that flow into the Great Salt Lake. And right now, our Utah legislature is discussing whether they're going to continue to flow in the same amounts. And so it's very concerning because right now the lake is divided into 2 separate pieces and doesn't flow over the causeway, and the level is so low that it could actually be damaging our own lungs as we breathe the air that comes up from the dust off the dry lake bed.
There's not enough water. They can't keep the level of the water stable. There's a natural cycle in which when the water flows from the mountains into the Great Salt Lake, it can create moisture, and this moisture will create snow and rain, and that in its turn goes back to the mountains in the spring, and the rivers can throw that water back in there into the lake and keep the level stable. However, they want to build a dam right by the Bear River, and so there will not be enough water covering all the area.
The debate concerns the value of the water here compared to the value of the water for new homes and watering lawns and other uses.
With the exposed grounds of the lake, you know, there's a lot of toxins underneath it from in the days where they were mining.
There are heavy metals in the
mercury
dust.
and arsenic, and in the summer when it's really warm and with the winds, it will be all blown into the pollution, and people will just be really affected by that.
We hope that there is a good solution for the Great Salt Lake. We thank you for coming to Utah and creating this art intervention here at the Great Salt Lake at the Spiral Jetty.
I would like to add what I've experienced here today. Even though as an artist you can never really comprehend, what really went on. It's only afterwards you will understand the experience. But one of the things that again and again I have come to understand about myself and my work, I started off as a painter and then I moved on to public art interventions. The final experience of that creation will always have to do with the child and the primal existence experience. I've always arrived at that state while I painted, but then somehow that desire to be achieving the primal existence experience somehow had to get bigger, and so I didn't understand why I had to go that way. But every time I finish a public art intervention, I see it over and over again. This is when you're connecting your art, and through your art, you're really arriving at that child experience, the way you experience things as a child, which is a very physical way of being in the world. And I can't help but think that Robert Smithson, when he did this, it almost feels like that he may not have known it, but it almost feels like that he also wanted that connection, because it's so much about the land, and anything that's to do with the earth and the land, it's so primal. So thank you so much.